Let's talk about how absurdly great HBO's adaptation of The Last of Us really is. First, I have to say, The Last of Us, the original Last of Us, is quite possibly my favorite video game of all time. I've replayed it several times on hard difficulties, earned the trophies, pretty much done everything. I actually really love The Last of Us 2. I know some people have issues with that game for different reasons, but I actually love that game as well. So that being said, I was really excited when I heard that HBO had the rights for the show and that the director of the video game would also be part of the creative team and directing or the production team of The Last of Us television show. Well, then I also found out that another series that I really liked on HBO, Chernobyl, that director would be directing The Last of Us. So everything seemed to be lining up pretty good. Pedro Pascal had been cast as Joel, and Bella Ramsey had been cast as Ellie. Now, initially, when you see Bella Ramsey, she really doesn't remind you at all of Ellie from the video game. They look completely different, but I can say I was pleasantly surprised by her portrayal of Ellie in the show. So why is The Last of Us so great? Well, HBO decided to go the route of not making drastic changes to the source material. The story in the game is what makes it one of the greatest video games ever made. From beginning to end, it just tells a really tight story, not a whole lot of convoluted ideas and things you gotta think about. It's a really simple story. Someone loses a child, 20 years later, there's an apocalypse, 20 years later, he meets up with another child, he has to take this child across the country on a mission. He ends up becoming a father figure to that child, so on and so forth. I don't want to spoil the show for the people who haven't played the video game. But the adventure that they have, they grow closer and closer. And that's what makes those two characters so interesting. You spend the majority of your time with those two characters and also picking up information about other people in the world, how they've gotten along, how they've survived this apocalypse. For the uninitiated, the story of The Last of Us on the surface might sound like just another zombie apocalypse television show, but that's kind of not the case. In the video game, the cordyceps fungus that normally attacks insects in tropical regions like South America, especially ants, will take over the host body, take control of it, make it go to an area where it can then grow spores and infect other insects with the same fungus. Well, this fungus has somehow mutated and been able to infect humans. The infected humans act like your, typical fast-moving zombies. The difference is there are different levels of infection. There are the recently infected who don't have a lot of outward, growths and fungal growths on their body, but they're fast. They attack anything that's moving. And there's after a certain amount of time, if they don't die, they become even more infected, where the fungal infection starts to erupt from their eyes and their skin, and eventually they become blind and they start using a form of echolocation, and those are called clickers. In the video game, they're really hard to kill. You have to either have some sort of weapon. If you try to go barehanded, they'll kill you, period. And an even further stage are the bloaters, the ones that have been around for a long time. They get huge, they get really strong, and in the video game, they throw spores at you. That's just a basic rundown of the infected in the game, but in the show, it's pretty much the same, except that there are no spores. The showrunners decided that they would go away from the spores because in the video game, it works, but in real world, spores don't really work for television. In the video game, you had to constantly put on a gas mask whenever there were spores around. The spores just seem to be confined to certain areas. When we know in real life, air blows things around, those spores will be everywhere. So in the show, they decided to use tendrils, underground network of the fungus, the mycelium, that can kind of, if you step on a fungus tendril in one place, up to a mile away, other infected can be alerted to your presence, which is actually based on real science. And that's actually a pretty smart move by the showrunners because it doesn't really affect the story that much. It just makes it make more sense for television. As of this recording, I've watched the first 6 episodes, my wife and I, and she can tell you I was absolutely just into this show from beginning to end because the showrunners put in so many Easter eggs from the video game. I'm constantly pointing at the screen like, that's from the game, that's from the game, that's from the game. She doesn't know, she's seen me play the game, she knows I love the game, but she doesn't know what's in the game. So I kind of have to explain some things sometimes. That being said, she's just as into the show as I am. because it's just really good television. It goes to show that you can make an excellent, not just a good, but an excellent video game adaptation if you put the right kind of thought into it. Obviously, you can tell I love the show so far. There's 3 more episodes, and I plan on doing a full series breakdown with spoilers after the season is over. So yeah, that's what me and my wife have been watching. We love The Last of Us and can't wait to see the next episodes. Thanks for watching.